I am 100%, not 90%, I am 100% convinced that Jeffrey Epstein did not commit suicide. We're not stupid. We know that powerful organizations have used blackmail for hundreds of years to control the narrative, to control the votes. If you want to control the votes forever of a senator, of a congressman, of a federal judge, you want to control their votes forever, you want to control a billionaire, you get them on film with a 12-year-old. And there's nothing they won't do to make sure that that stuff doesn't get out. The average American does not trust their political leaders, doesn't trust the system, doesn't trust their doctors. There is so much that we have been lied to. This is the great deception, is what I call this time that we're living in right now. And it's time for us to stand up and say, no, we're done being deceived.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. Paul Hutchinson, had him on once before, got him on again today because people, this whole human trafficking of young children, Epstein, maybe Diddy, the whole bit, it's sickening and we need to put a stop to this. We need to get behind this cause. Paul, okay, for the last 10 years has devoted his life. He's done over 70 undercover investigations rescuing these young girls and boys from human traffickers. It's happening here. It's very prevalent here in the United States. Some of the things that he told me, I couldn't even process. How do you do this with children? Children, it's evil. And yes, if Epstein matter, if it's being covered up in every way, it's got to be opened up. It's got to be transparent. We cannot let these people not be held accountable. People with money and power cannot take advantage of anyone, especially young kids. It's disgusting, and they deserve to be brought to justice in some way, shape, or form. We need to have accountability. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I don't believe we're going to get it. I'm telling you right now, I don't believe we're going to get it because remember, this investigation was handed over to the Department of Justice now. They didn't do the investigation. It was done before. Okay, so who knows what's been taken out? Who knows what's been redacted? Who knows what's been thrown away, discarded? Who knows who they're protecting? But they are protecting someone, and many people, no doubt about it. They have videos, thousands of videos that the FBI took because cameras were put on these beds. So yes, you want to protect the innocent girl that was in bed, blurt her out, but who the hell was she in bed with? We need to know that. We need transparency. Yes, we all need to demand it. Nobody should get away. And let me tell you something. For those of you that are saying it was all about Trump, if Trump was really guilty and they had that material, don't you think the Biden administration would have put it out there in 1 second? It would have been shouted from the rooftop. So let's not start blaming Trump and saying Trump is holding it back for his own reason. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know who they're trying to protect or whatever, but we need this information to come out. That's why I brought Paul back again. He's written a book, Sound of Freedom. You saw the movie Sound of Freedom, which he co-financed and which he was one of the principal characters. He was the one that actually rescued those 51 or 52 young girls. You saw it in the movie. Well, he wrote a book and gets into a lot greater detail. And that book is going to be released on July 29th. But I brought Paul back just to, with all this Diddy stuff, all this Epstein stuff, it's all coming out. It's more and it's sickening. And Paul has more to add about this. So I brought him back on. And I know you're going to enjoy this interview. Well, I don't know if that's the right word. I hope it motivates you like it's motivated me because I'm going to get involved. Him, my companies, we're going to get involved to help rescue these victims of human trafficking. It's got to stop. 300,000 of these kids came in to this country during the Biden administration that we lost track of. We don't know where they are. And Paul will tell you how these kids are brainwashed to come in here, how they're scared, how they're abused, what happens to them, how they kidnap their families or tell them they're going to kill their families if they don't do what they're told to do. It's disgusting stuff. How could we just sit back? I don't see it, people. We got to get behind this cause in a big way. And yes, we need everything released. We need everything released. We need to know as much as we can know. But look, I'm telling you right now, across the board, the government, who knows? Are we going to get everything on JFK? Of course not. RFK? Of course not. We're going to get everything? No, because they already did the damage to it. They redacted, they did whatever, they threw things away. Who knows? But we got to keep pushing no matter what, because we got to let these people know you're not doing this evil garbage anymore because we're watching you. We couldn't prevent what happened in the past. We may not be able to bring you accountable to what your actions were in the past, but we'll be damned if we're going to allow you to do it again in the future. That's what we need to do. With no further delay, here's my very special guest, and now a person that's become a good friend, Paul Hutchinson. Paul, it's certainly a pleasure to have you back again. I know my audience were really, really touched by the first sit-down that we had. We have so much more to talk about now. So much has been going on in the past several weeks, as you know. And I want to get into a couple of things. Number one, this great book that you've written, and I think it's going to be released on the 28th. Is that correct?
29th. It's actually available on Amazon now. You just can't get it shipped until the 29th, so you can pre-order it anytime.
Excellent. I really want to get into, the subject matter.
Sound of Freedom.
Yeah. And what's the subtitle?
The true stories that inspired the film, and this is the Child Liberation series, book 1. So, I led more than 70 undercover missions. So there's a lot of stories that can inspire people and teach parents what they can do to keep their kids safe, etc. So we can go into some of the details of that today and talk about Epstein and everything else you want to go through.
Well, great. And I do want to go through all of that. And let's get into the Epstein matter, since it's so out there. And I'm sure you share some of my feelings. I was very disappointed with the way this was handled over the past couple of weeks to basically close down the investigation, or say that they summarized it and said, that's it. No further information to be released. But I know they've reversed that in the past week, at least. Trump has ordered some of the pertinent grand jury testimony to be released. And I think they're kind of changing their attitude, And Donald Trump made a statement in a cabinet meeting that he had that became public. They were talking about, other things, but a reporter was asking about the Epstein Files. And he turned around and he said, why are we still interested in this guy, this creep, he called him? It's years past. And my response to that was, Donald, you don't understand, or maybe you do. We're interested because young women were trafficked. Young girls were abused. They were taken advantage of by an elite group of people, as you mentioned the last time on the podcast. And we cannot let this go. We need to hold these people accountable so that it never happens again. And you, Paul, more than anyone, are an expert in this field because you've devoted so much of your life to helping these young kids. And I want to know how you feel about it.
I share your feelings 100%. I've been a staunch Trump supporter from the beginning. I was literally there in 2016 during his inauguration. During on the election night, I was there at the inauguration as well. I have an amazing story of literally being there with the Trump family when the whole screen turned red and we won the elections back then. And there's nobody that's done more good in fighting child trafficking than Donald Trump. However,
my friends, I want you to picture this. You lock your doors at night, you set your alarm, right? But who's guarding your social security number? Right now, I can tell you this is sitting in someone's database that's already been hacked. And the bank's promising you security, it's practically gift wrapping your information for these hoodlums. Bank of America, they just had another data breach and they kept it silent for months. These companies, they wait an average of 277 days before telling you about a breach. That's 9 months that these criminals have all of your data. Look, with attacks happening daily now, your personal information is already at risk. That's why today's video is sponsored by Aura. After rebuilding my life post-prison, I'm not letting some faceless hackers take what I've worked so hard for. Shady companies out there, they're called data brokers. They take you to very sensitive information and they give it to the highest bidder. They sell it. This is done without your knowledge, of course, and legally, they have to remove it if you ask them to, but they make it very difficult to do so. This is where Aura comes in. Aura alerts me immediately if my information's on the dark web or if someone is trying to access my accounts, my social security number, even my emails. Plus, they back it up with $5 million in identity theft insurance. That's $5 million. These companies that are offering free credit monitoring after a breach, it's like calling me to telling me my front doors are open after thieves have already cleaned out my house. Look, family is everything to me, my friends. Go to aura.com/Franzese for 2 weeks free. They'll give you 2 weeks on the house. They'll find out if your data is already exposed before these companies are forced to tell you, and that's 9 months later. Remember, it's better to have protection and never need it than need it and never have it. This is an offer that you can't afford to refuse.
This last 2 weeks, I literally, my wife and I are like, what, did somebody put a mask on somebody else and switch him out? I mean, this isn't the guy that I voted for, because nobody should be able to say, oh, that guy, this is old news. What, are you guys stupid for even thinking about that? No, this is really important for so many Americans on the right and the left. This shouldn't be a political issue. Mm-hmm. This is about the children. This is the one thing that we can all come together on. And you want to lose the support of your base and piss off the rest of them? Then throw this out to the wind saying this isn't a big deal, because this is a really big deal. And all we're asking for is transparency. Yeah, they may play with the words a little bit and say, there's no client list. Well, guess what? Maybe it's not called a client list. How about the flight logs of everybody who was there?
We know there's flight logs.
Absolutely,
no doubt
we know. And his phone's got to have contacts and friends and people he's been in connection with, and all of the evidence that we do have is proving that there was some very nefarious things going on. If there was really 14 terabytes of video footage, and now they're telling us, the only video footage, the only video stuff that we have is the stuff that he downloaded, child porn. No, he didn't download 14 terabytes of child porn. This was cameras that was set up, and all of us know, we're not stupid. We know that powerful organizations have used blackmail for hundreds of years to control the narrative, to control the votes. And just like I said on the show before, if you want to control the votes forever of a senator, of a congressman, of a federal judge, you want to control their votes forever. You want to control a billionaire, you get them on film with a 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing they won't do to make sure that that stuff doesn't get out. And so this is the reason why we haven't seen the stuff on Diddy either. The most valuable thing that they got on the whole Diddy thing was gathering all of that video evidence. Why? Not so that they could take Diddy down. It's so that they could control everybody that was there. This has been in the playbooks of agencies in the U.S. and foreign agencies that we could or couldn't go there, depending on what you want, that's been in their playbook for a long, long time. This is how they control those who are in power. A long time ago, they would use homosexuality because it was such a taboo subject that if they could get a political leader, on film in a homosexual situation, that was the leverage that they needed. Now we live in a world where that's commonplace, and that's not the leverage. The only leverage that is viable to them is this with kids. This is what's happening, and so. This has been in their playbook for a long time. This is what's happening with the Epstein situation, and we as Americans need full transparency. I'm okay with the fact that Trump was likely on the jet. I've been on a lot of jets. Just because I've been on a jet with some guy who does bad things doesn't mean I'm doing those bad things, right? That's okay. It's not going to send you over the edge if the flight log is there, but if you've got the flight log of 20 times that somebody went to the island, and you've got the video evidence of it, and not only that, but we can go into depth about whether he was committed suicide or not. I am 100%, not 90%. I'm 100% convinced that Jeffrey Epstein did not commit suicide.
Well, I'll back you up on that. I've been saying it all along. I was in that cell. That's where I was for 7 months, and there's no way he could have committed suicide. You couldn't even do it. You'd have to be a midget to even try because of what's available to you in that cell. It wasn't possible. And the other fellow there, Baden, who was also at the autopsy, said it was more of a homicide.
Yeah.
Strangulation. Mm-hmm. There's no way he could have committed suicide. No way, Paul. And I don't. And listen, I have no horse in this race. I mean, You know, a lot of people have said, well, you're in Trump's pocket because you don't want to say everything that's gone on. I said, you know, that's so ridiculous because I support somebody's policies. I don't need to be in Trump's pocket. He doesn't need me. You know, I'm just telling you what I feel. There's no way that he committed suicide. No way, based upon my experience spending time in that cell. I spent 29 months altogether in solitary, so I know what it is. I know how those cameras work. I know how those COs patrol the area, and I know what's available to you in that cell. So there's no way. So listen, and I also heard, I did a deep dive on him, that they collected thousands of videos that were, the cameras were directed on each bedroom. Thousands of videos. Well, why are we not seeing them? And if they want to protect the young women, we'll blur their faces out. But we need to see who they were in bed with. And the fact that they're hiding this, Paul, it's just terrible.
It is. And more evidence comes out that we are being lied to. For example, the raw footage of the jail cell, right? Mm-hmm. Raw footage. And Wired Magazine said, no, we've done an analysis on this. This is not raw footage. This was something that multiple videos got put through an Adobe program and edited in a way where now we see what we're seeing. No, show us the real stuff, guys. Mm-hmm. Just be honest. Somebody changed something when it came to those videos. And of course, the last minute thing, you know, there's a whole,
2 minutes they lost.
Yeah. So, since the 70s, there's 2 minutes that were lost there on every, no. They have to think that the American people have their head in the sand for us to accept this stuff. We can't. And more than anything, we need transparency. We need to trust our government. Back in the 50s, 60s, there was a high level of trust, and that started to go down in the 70s, 80s. And I think it's at the lowest point ever, where the average American does not trust their political leaders, doesn't trust the system, doesn't trust their doctors. There is so much that we have been lied to. This is the great deception, is what I call this time that we're living in right now. And it's time for us to stand up and say, no, we're done being deceived. We want transparency. And yes, it may hurt a lot of people on the right and the left. It might hurt our markets. That's okay. We'll recover from it. What we're not going to recover from is continuing to live in a state where we can't trust our government leaders.
Yeah, Paul, I don't know if it's gone so far in that direction that we can ever bring it back. I really don't. You know, I think we have to, social media is what's raised the awareness of this to people. Because, you know, it gets me, these politicians, they just lie on video and on social media. They don't even care anymore. It's not like it doesn't even bother them anymore. There was a time when we didn't see that. They had look, when I was dealing with politicians on the street, and I did, and they were taking money from us, but they were very careful about it. They didn't want to advertise. They didn't want to be known about anything. Today, it doesn't seem like they care. So it's gone so far to the other direction. And to mention something, you know, I recall the scene in The Godfather when they wanted to, you know, get that politician in order. They put him in bed with a young woman and had it on tape. Yeah. I mean, so you're right. I mean, this is something they've been doing forever, and they're continuing it.
There's a book I read like 30 years ago called The CIA's Book of Dirty Tricks. And is very clear. Sexual blackmail is right at the top of the list. It's been at the top of the list for the CIA, for the Mossad, for country. And that doesn't make me anti-Semitic in any way. I've got some wonderful friends that are Jewish, but it's important that all of us, that Israel, that America, that all of us hold our agencies responsible for their tactics in using this kind of blackmail, especially when it involves innocent children. When they're using this kind of blackmail to control, we need to stand up and say, we're done.
So, Paul, let me ask you, based upon your experience, do you think that both in the Diddy case and the Epstein case, they could be holding on to this material, this evidence that they have, just to blackmail other leaders and other wealthy people that are involved in this? Because, look, people that were going to Epstein Island and the people involved with Diddy, they weren't poor people. They weren't middle class. These were elitists. These were people with money and power in some form of life that they're involved in. Do you think they're holding these for that reason?
100%. 100%. Because, you know, you let that out, you lose all of those years of control tactics. So you lose everything. Now you have to corrupt a bunch of new leaders that come in. It is much better If you're an agency that wants to control in that way, it's much better to figure out how to keep them in place and have the strings attached to them.
So it's very possible. I mean, I've seen this, but without the very, very hard evidence, we don't know. But it's very possible he was working with the CIA or with Mossad. We know Ghislaine's Maxwell father was very deeply involved. I think he either committed suicide or he was murdered as a result of that. So it's very possible he was tied up with either or both of these organizations and working to get this blackmail evidence on people.
Absolutely. There's been multiple people that have been in high positions of power who have said that. The district attorney in South Florida.
Acosta, I think.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he says this is over my pay grade. This guy is an agency asset, right? Meaning they're using him, they're behind him, and there's so many red flags. I came from the finance world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know what it takes to build a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. Epstein didn't have it. He didn't. He had a whole bunch of favors. He literally, and the whole story. I mean, literally, he started out getting a job as a teacher at a school.
Dalton, right?
Yes. Yeah. That was run by Barr's father. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the crazy thing. His father, I think his name was, anyway, he wrote a book. He wrote this fictional book about an alien race that was into pedophilia, that was abusing children and using that as a control thing to be able to control the world and everything else. He published this book. This was the head of this school.
Mm-hmm.
So the same time that Epstein is there, we've got this weird situation where the head of the school publishes this pedophile type of a book. I believe that he was beginning to be groomed at that point.
Wow.
At that point, realizing he was into that kind of thing. There was multiple things that were signs. And then, even when he was arrested, he was arrested in Florida. He ends up basically he had 12 hours a day that he could have free reign. He could just literally leave the cell for whatever he wanted to. He told the officers that were watching over him that they had to wear suits when they were escorting him anywhere, so it wouldn't look like he had police officers with him. He was running the show. The only way that you run the show like that is if you've got some power way above the pay grade of the district attorney of Southern Florida. Period.
100%. That leads even more credence to the fact that he didn't commit suicide because he got out of it off easy the first time. He knew what he still had available to him, on other people. He would have figured he would have got off this time also, So, Paul, let me ask you this, because you've been working with this for a while. These people that abuse or are into pedophilia, they have to be wired differently. I mean, as a father of 7 children, a grandfather of 7 children, I don't understand it. I mean, have you ever talked to one of these people, and is there something, are they wired differently? I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't.
Here's what I've seen, and this is the case in the Epstein situation. And I mentioned this on our interview before, but the common thread that I saw with these traffickers and the perpetrators was an enormous amount of arrogance and greed and lust. And what happens is that we've all heard the saying that power corrupts,
mm-hmm.
and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is what's happening, is that a lot of these guys have, they've already climbed these mountains. They've already hired prostitutes. They've already whatever else. And what's the next thrill? A man becomes super dangerous when he's got all of the arrogance, greed, and lust, and he gets bored in some way. So that's number one. Number two, there's a lot of cases that get swept under the rug when people come out and talk about how, you can call it selling your soul to the devil. You can call it whatever you want to. When an agreement is made, and saying, okay, yeah, guess what? You've got some talents. We can help you. You want unlimited money. You wanted unlimited control. You wanted to be able. You want to be this senator. You want to be in this place. That's okay. We're going to help you get there, but we need this and this on you to be able to make it happen. And so some of these times it's not just them getting drunk or getting them high or whatever else and having to make a mistake. These are conscious decisions in exchange for that power. In fact, there's a book, and again, guys, don't get me wrong on this. I'm not anti-Semitic in any way. I've got wonderful friends who are Jewish, and we spend a lot of time with them. There's a book called Pawns in the Game. Pawns in the Game, written by William Carr, almost 100 years ago. He was in high-level military intelligence, and he'll drop a truth bomb at the beginning of each one of the chapters of really where the control mechanisms are in our world, and who's behind them, and then he'll spend the next chapter in improving what he just dropped. And the truth bombs that he throws out are things like the I'm going to call them the agreements, the covenants with the Luciferian order that people like the Rothschilds made in the 1700s. And then he provides evidence of this. And what it is okay, the agreement is they're going to have full control of the financial system, of the media, etc. And they're going to take humanity down this road of using sexual blackmail and other things to be able to put us in a position where we lose our fundamental moral values, where we separate from a connection with God. Even World War I, World War II, and then eventually World War III, orchestrated by these ultra elites. We think that the movie stars we know, or the president, or the these billionaire families are elites. No, those guys are paupers compared to the guys who are really making the decisions, who are worth so much money. I mean, more money than Elon times 10, some of these families, but we don't know about it because they're the ones behind the banking organizations, etc. So,
wow. I have to tell you, Paul, after the last interview, your interview had the most impact on me than anyone else in the last 5 years that I've been doing this. I really mean that. And I've been talking about it. I mentioned it to other people that they should definitely have you on, because you're just a great source of information to try to get this horrible, horrible situation under control. I really mean that. And, listen, the Diddy case, obviously very similar to Epstein, probably the same kind of, background on this with the elite people. And he's got them, I'm sure, in a position to be blackmailed also. That whole case, I don't know what happened with the Southern District. I've said that all along. Charging him with RICO is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've had 3 RICO indictments. And in each indictment, I was one of 15 co-defendants. There was it was silly, but
it was set up to fail from the beginning.
Absolutely. And it was that because, again, they've now have this information in their possession, and they can use it to blackmail other people to get what they want. I'm telling you, it's mind-blowing, having come from the street and knowing what I was involved in, to see that we were amateurs compared to what these people do and what they can accomplish. It's terrible. And we would have never, let me tell you this, Paul, I don't glorify my former life at all, but there was no Peter. If you were involved in that, you were in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
We had our limits to what we would do, and that's...
Well, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but we had on one of my operations, and multiple ones actually, we had a guy who he was the drug lord. He was the head of the cartel in the area. And he said to our operative, he said, listen, you may not agree with how I do business, but I've got children of my own. And those guys are evil. I'm going to kill them. And if I do, you got a whole bunch of kids, you don't know where they are. Or I tell you everything I know. You guys go in, you make sure those kids get back to their families, you make sure he goes to jail, and I'll take care of it from there. And you put a pedophile in prison in Latin America.
Forget.
Yeah. That's a death sentence by itself.
It used to be the same here, but I don't know how it's, fortunately I don't know how it is now.
Well, they separate them.
Yeah.
They literally, because they know there's a pecking order. They know that the guys that, robbed a bank or killed somebody or whatever, they've got some morals of their own, and those morals stop at kids.
When it comes to kids, hands off to all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, the last time you were here, and I've been able to verify that, obviously, by other people who said the same thing, the United States is the second biggest area for trafficking. Is that true?
Yeah, so the United States is the number one producer and consumer of child pornography in the world. And we talked about this a little bit, about how a lot of the demand in Latin America and other places was coming from Americans going down. But now with the open border for that 4 years, now there's hundreds of thousands of those children that are brought into the United States. And yes, this is prolific. This is right here. And it's so important that, we can sit here, we can talk about this darkness all day long, but we need to know what we can do about it. And what we do is we start right here. We don't start by, okay, we're going to make all of these extra laws and go punish these other countries. No, we need to look in the mirror. Every one of us needs to look in the mirror and saying, okay, how are we contributing to this? How are we contributing with our dollars that are being paid into these movies that are supporting these actors, or whatever it is? We need to each stand up and say, no, we may disagree on saving the trees. We may disagree on, how much money we're putting into defense, but we can all agree on the fact that God's children are not for sale, period. And we're not going to allow the blackmail of adults to be done on the behalf of taking innocence from children, period.
And how do is there a movement? Is there something we can do in this country where I think so many people would rise up and support, an initiative, I should call it like this, to where we really start to hold these people accountable and save these kids? First of all, how do we identify them? Where do we find them? But I know last time you said it could be happening in our own neighborhoods.
Yeah. Well, first of all, with our political leaders, we have to demand full transparency. Period. There is no national secret that is too secret for us to open up transparency on the Epstein situation. If powerful people go down on both sides, so be it. And in our own neighborhoods, I don't know if I told the story, but I'm going to tell it again because it's so important. I love the story of the man sitting on the couch, and he's sitting there and he's reading his newspaper. And his little boy comes in and says, Daddy, I want to play baseball. He's like, oh, no, I'm busy right now. He's like, okay. Comes back a little bit. Hey, it's a beautiful day outside. It's sunny. Will we play baseball? He turns the page of the newspaper and he sees this picture of the world, this map. He tears it up in a little piece of paper, throws it on the floor, and he says, son, you need to learn your geography. I want you to get some tape together every single country, every single state, exactly where it has to go. You do that, and I'll go play baseball with you. Thinking it's going to take a few hours. This little boy comes back in just 2 or 3 minutes, and it's all taped together. And the man says, well, would your mom help you? What'd you do? The little boy says, no, he turns it over. He says, there was a picture of a man on the other side. I just put the man together and the whole world came together. Mm. And that's really the answer. We can sit here and point fingers and blame. But the reality is each one of us have to look in the mirror. Take personal responsibility for how we're showing up, in our family, how we're showing up at work, in our communities, etc. What is it about our words, about our actions that is contributing to the toxicity that we're trying to fight or the good that we're trying to create? My story is no different from anyone's in that space. 10 years ago, I was living a life of arrogance, greed, and lust. And it wasn't until I came to a recognition of how the ripple effects of my words and my thoughts and my actions were affecting everyone around me. And I realized, wow, the very thing that I'm fighting, I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm literally helping to save kids. But if that arrogance, greed, and lust is what's fueling that, how is that affecting my family? How's it affecting people around me? How, is there somebody that came to one of my parties that ended up, cheating on his wife there, that ends up breaking up his family, and then the ripple effect of that is a fatherless home, and the daughters gets pregnant or raped, or the son's on drugs, or whatever. There's a ripple effect of everything that we do. And so yes, we need to stand up and say and demand transparency. Yes, I believe that the very foundations of any organization that is operating out of this state of blackmail, that is lying to us, those foundations will crumble. And at that point, humanity is going to be looking inward. They'll be looking heavenward. They'll be looking for leadership they can trust. And so I see that happening very soon. and it doesn't have to be a revolution. We don't have to fight a war to do it. We just need to hold people accountable, and the truth will come out. The truth will come out. There's beautiful advantages with AI that's picking up things faster than we could all figure out on our own, and it's exposing lies all over the place. But at the same time, AI is something that can create a great deception as well, with fake videos and fake everything else. And so, we can go into depth on how I believe that the true answer is tuning in to that still small voice of truth, where every one of us are born with the ability to you can call it intuition, you can call it, that divine guidance. We all have the ability to feel into that. And the book I'm writing, called Are You Listening? With My Hand on My Heart, talks about finding the undercover, in the undercover missions, finding the kids based on being led. Talks about building businesses and creating things based on being led from a spiritual standpoint. And I believe that that's one of the keys to helping humanity heal, is helping them turn their eyes heavenward, turn their hearts to that space.
So it's really a moral issue, that people have to face. So let me ask you, I have a wife that's pretty optimistic about the state of the world and about, God having an impact. And I'm a strong person of faith, but I'm also trying to be a realist. And I see things at times getting worse. And do you think in this area things will get worse before they get better?
Absolutely. Most religions believe that we're going to go through a time of great adversity before, they believe there'll be 1,000 years of peace or whatever. I think they kind of got that right. But we're going to see that in our lifetime. But that 1,000 years of peace isn't going to come because God's going to come and just wave his hand and we're all of a sudden going to be nice to each other. There are things that we each individually have to do to raise that global consciousness, to be able to come to that place of forgiving ourselves, forgiving other people, and releasing those things that don't serve us. And it's gonna be a shit show before it gets better, but it's necessary for humanity to come to its knees so that they can have that humility necessary to heal.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, people obviously in leadership are making a big mistake because normal people are starting to see through them in a big way. It's, the left now is pounding on Donald Trump because of the Epstein thing. They have something to go after him for. Every day they look for something else. But people are realizing, well, it was the Biden administration that investigated this whole Epstein thing. Nobody jumped up and screamed during that time. So they don't really care about the people. This just becomes a political issue for them to go back and forth so they can, depose Donald Trump and get back into power. We need people that really feel for this. And I don't understand how they don't. I don't understand how they do just throw everything aside and say, you know what, this is about kids. Let's throw the politics out the window and let's get to the bottom of it. Like you said, and everybody get together. I don't know. To me, I see it's gone so far the other way. I don't know if that can happen. But if we keep pressing it, and I see there's a lot of pressure being put on this administration, and they're starting to say, okay, we got to get things out there. We'll see what happens. But I don't know. Powerful people pulling the strings here, it's tough. But let me switch gears a little bit. Sound of Freedom, tremendous film, fooled everybody, which shows you that people are really interested and tuned into this. They want answers and they want it to stop. Hopefully there's going to be a second movie. We need it. And now you've written a book. And please tell me about it, because I know the books are always more in depth than the movies. So I know there's going to be a lot more packed into this that you have to share with us. And I'm excited about it.
I'm excited to share it because, the movie was created so that we can have global awareness. And that's exactly what happened. There's 70 million people have seen Sound of Freedom. Hundreds of millions of children are safer now because of it. However, so many times people will leave the movie and they don't know what to do. They're like, I want to go help. I want to go rescue kids, whatever. And there's not a lot of things that we can do to make the problem go away, right? And so I strive to put a lot of that in the book. Tools, real tangible tools that parents can use. In fact, in the beginning section, the first few chapters, the making of an undercover operator, talks about situational awareness and hand-to-hand combat, and a lot of the things. We actually just did a 4-day training down at our retreat in Colombia this last week, where we had one of my trainers. His name is Steve Turani. Steve is one of the best in the world at edged weapons, situational awareness, and improvised weapons training. Where we taught some of our team down there and some guys who came to visit us. So we taught them how to we don't say kill, we say neutralize a threat, right? How to neutralize a threat using everything from a comb to a handkerchief, right? And I go through a lot of that situational awareness training. Literally 95% of the things that can keep you out of a dangerous situation happen before you ever go to your hard skills. Meaning, if you get to the point where you're having to use your Krav Maga or your punching or whatever else, it's literally 95% of the opportunities were lost of you identifying, oh, that guy was in that place. I should have paid attention to the noise in the area at the time. These are all things that you can pay attention to. Little things like your like people's body language, etc., are things that the average person doesn't pick up on. In fact, there's a book that I had a lot of our operators read called The Gift of Fear. And the Gift of Fear talks about how in your conscious world, we're picking up everything that's here in our conversation, etc. Our subconscious literally remembers everything. It remembers, your subconscious mind knows how many steps you took today.
Really?
Your subconscious mind knows how many stoplights you stopped at your entire lifetime combined, right? Your subconscious mind also knows that when you were walking into that restaurant, that there was a guy that out of your peripheral over there that was in a heavy coat that was too heavy for the temperature of the day. And your subconscious mind also knows in your business transaction that the pupils of your potential business partner that were changing at certain times when he was talking, and picks up those nonverbal cues that guy's lying to you. So in The Gift of Fear, it talks about how there are so many things that our subconscious mind is picking up on, which is why we need to trust our gut. When our gut says something, there's probably 1,000 more things that your conscious mind didn't pick up on that your subconscious did. And beyond your subconscious, the connection with what I call your superconscious, the literal connection with everything is something that energetically you and I are connected. We're connected to the good, the bad, the ugly, the happy, the everything. All of that we're connected to energetically. And I touch on that a little bit in the book, in some of the undercover missions of how we weren't following logic and protocol. In reality, we were being led to where those kids were, what we need to do to keep the kids safe, et cetera, and how the average person can tap in to some of those things to help keep themselves and their kids safe, et cetera. So that's all the first section. Then, of course, we go into the detail of the rescue missions in Colombia, the rescue missions in Haiti, and a bunch of the others. And in that process, taking the reader through the same emotional transformation that I had, going from that place of arrogance and greed and lust and seeing the darkness that humanity ends up in if continuing down that road. And then at the end, the last 5 chapters are all about liberating humanity. What needs to happen for us as a global collective? What do we need to do so that our kids and our grandkids aren't having these conversations? We're not trying to figure out how to create transparency in our government and expose the guys who are abusing children. How do we make this go away? How do we fix this long term? And I talk about that inner healing. I talk about, number 1, the awareness, and number 2, the actionable steps that we can do to keep our kids safe. I talk in depth about signs that you can look for in kids that maybe are in a situation where they're being controlled or they're potentially being abused by a family member, et cetera. So a lot of very tangible tools that parents can use to keep their kids safe.
Yeah, Paul, because didn't you say last time a lot of this trafficking begins in the family because of an abuse or something that happened at that point?
Absolutely. The average, you don't have some guy at 45 years old that all of a sudden just decides to go to Mexico and go rape kids. That doesn't happen. It was already happening. It was already happening in their own family in his own neighborhood. This is happening all over the place. This is this generational abuse, generational trauma that is being passed down. I can't tell you how many times that we found that, a guy who was addicted to child pornography or abusing somebody was abused by his grandfather, who was likely abused by his father, etc. This is and I had a wonderful conversation earlier today with Chad on Hopeaholics, where he talks about how he went through some of those challenges as a child. However, he was the chain breaker. We have that in the logo for the Child Liberation Foundation. We have right in the middle this chain and this broken piece in the middle, because that's what it's all about. Is for generations in front of him, he is the one that broke that chain. He's the one that ensured that his children grew up in a healthy home, that he didn't pass on that trauma to them. He got the counseling, he got the help, he got the healing that he needed, so that his son grows up in a very different world than what he did. So that's what needs to happen with all of us. And that's why I say it starts with the man in the mirror, the man on the couch. That's how you change the world. We start in our own families. We start in our own neighborhoods. We create programs where we can help people heal from that trauma so that they never, ever pass it on to a child.
It's interesting because I have said all along, and I've been saying it, that I think one of the biggest issues we have in America is because of the breakdown of the family. Yeah. So many of the young men that I've mostly spoken to, whether they be in prison or juvenile hall, you can write the same script for every one of them, Paul. Broken home, no father figure in the house, mom normally young, trying to do her best. She's got her own issues in life. And these kids gravitate to the street before you know it, they're in prison or something worse. They gravitate to the local gangbanger, drug dealer. So, same here. If you don't have a wholesome family where the parents are monitoring their children's activities, then you can get an abusive grandfather or something, because these kids are not being watched. So that's an even deeper issue. How do you bring back the nuclear family? How do we do it?
Well, and sadly, Hollywood has tried to pull us away from those moral values in that nuclear family. And I'll just say this: this is not a religious conversation, but there has to be a God element in being able to keep that together. Our Alcoholics Anonymous has 4 of the 12, or I think even 5 of the 12 that bring God into the picture. Sexual Addicts Anonymous does as well. And so on that point, and I'm not talking religion, I'm talking God.
Right.
Okay? To me, they're very different.
I don't like the word religion. I don't like religion. Faith, okay, God, yes.
Yes,
religion.
yeah, and I don't even use the word God. I use my divine creator. We're gods to ants, and so Satan is the god to the Luciferian crap, whatever, So I'm very, very specific, and the God of creation is a God of infinite love and power, and so an answer to that. This is a crazy statistic I read. The average family, if your goal is to keep your family together, okay, your goal is to keep your family. The average family has a 50% chance of having a divorce. 1 in 2 chance of a divorce in America. If I could tell you could do one thing that would take it from 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,000. I don't know if I mentioned this before. Did I mention this before? No. This is powerful. One thing, it's literally 2 minutes, maybe 5 max every day that you could take it from 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,000. Would you want to know what it was? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's simple. For couples that pray together every day. I'm not talking something big and special. Just, hey, God, thanks, and hold hands right before you go to bed. Spend 2 minutes. For couples that pray together every day, the divorce rate goes from 1 in 2 to 1 in 1,152. Holy crap. Just that one thing. 1 in 1,152. Just by coming together and connecting with your creator together with your spouse. Even better, your whole family. Families that pray together, stay together type of a thing. So again, this is not a religious thing. This is hey, God, This is just between us and you. We're just having a conversation.
No, listen, about 2 years ago, I spoke in a men's group here in a big church. 1,500 men were there. And the pastor told me, he says, I don't know if you know this, but in Newport Beach, this is a wealthy conclave, right? In Newport Beach, 70% of the kids live in broken homes. 70%. I said, in Newport Beach? I don't know why I thought that was so strange, because I figure, hey, everybody's doing pretty well here, and we see a lot of families. We go to dinner, but 70%.
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but just that little, just praying together.
Just praying together. And here's the other thing too. I'm going to just touch on that. We're on that subject. So sadly, when many of us are taught to pray, we pray like this. It's praise, praise, praise. Sorry, fix. Okay. It's, all right. And we don't take time to listen, it's God did this, and, thank you. And sorry for this, please forgive me, whatever. Can you imagine having a relationship like that was very one-sided, where you didn't take the time to listen? Can you imagine calling up your wife saying, hey, honey, wow, you're amazing. You're the best wife ever. You're just so amazing. And sorry. I actually, I got a dent in the car. Sorry, I cheated on you, whatever, and fix. Hey, when you come home, can you sweep up some stuff? Because I left a big mess. And then you hang up the phone.
Yeah.
That was a shitty relationship, right?
Right.
How many of us literally, and this is why, I touched on it earlier, that listening is so important. Me and my wife, we not only hold hands and, offer up a prayer, but we also both do meditation. So a lot of Christians are like, oh, meditation, that's an Eastern thing, that's not really Christian. No, it's simply getting out of your head into your heart and taking the time to listen to that divine guidance. When we're so much always in our head space that we never get into that heart space. We never tune in to that voice of truth. And within that heart space, you can receive beautiful answers, divine guidance. You can manifest from that space, instead of just having, your pictures on a wall where you're going. What if you got into a space where you're literally co-creating with divinity in the future that you're wanting to put together, etc.? You can do that from that meditative space. You can also release everything that doesn't align with the best version of you. In our healing retreats, I teach people how to get in, from that beta wave to the alpha into the theta, almost into that delta wave state within their meditative space. And in that space, they can go 3 different directions. They can either ask questions, ask for that divine guidance and just feel and listen. They can create through gratitude, through feeling that high frequency of gratitude of all the things that are, all the things that have been, and all the things that you're creating. And then in that space, also being able to break ties with a previous version of yourself, break ties with the trauma that was inflicted on you by somebody in your childhood, whatever it is, and helping them go through this process of breaking those bonds so that they're not held down by that negativity, etc. Boom, people are able to break free of that in a very beautiful, easy way. And this is something you can do in your home every day. In that meditative space. So again, I know we're going on a tangent, but it's I believe something really important for healing humanity. If we're going to bring our families back together, do so with that divine guidance.
Yeah, no, it's not off topic at all, because it's another way to deal with, the result of not being that way. Just another stat that you may not be aware of, but in federal prison, the recidivism rate, people returning to prison at once released, is normally between 60 and 70%. When there is discipleship, faith-based discipleship programs where inmates are discipled inside for the few months before they're released, and then again outside, the recidivism rate goes down to 5%. Wow. From 60 to 70%. So when they try to talk about prison reform, the answer is right in front of them. They just don't do it.
Yeah.
They're not welcomed all the time. A lot of these Christian programs that come in, they're not welcomed by the inmates, but by the authorities, but they work. So the answer, we have all these people trying to say what they should do when the answer is right there, but they don't do it, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because I was one of those people that, discipleship helped me very much. But, Paul, this is, all I could say is, I have to thank you as a father and a grandfather to being, leading the charge for this in the way, and all the work you've done over the past 10 years and that you continue to do. And I offered it this the last time, and I'm sincerely offer any way that I can, support this initiative that you have to make people aware and to help families, understand how they can prevent their children from getting involved in this. I want to be on the forefront with you. I really mean that.
Well, you already are. You're doing such good work. You're demanding full transparency within the administration, in with your voice, with your audience, with other audiences that are having you on, and that's so important. The only way that we're going to get through the darkness is to uncover the darkness. Otherwise, it will continue to fester. The second that we uncover it and shine the light on it, the darkness dissipates. And that's what has to happen, is we have to demand full transparency. When it comes to Epstein, when it comes to Diddy, we need full transparency on all of this. And let the dominoes fall as they will, and that's okay. That's okay. We're going to get through this. And so you're absolutely already doing so much.
Thank you. And I want to make it clear, too, to everybody listening. I am a Donald Trump supporter. The fact that he knew Epstein, might have traveled on that plane, I don't ever want to put, a bad mark on somebody being involved in pedophilia if I don't have evidence for it. So you can't, this goes for anybody, not only Trump. You can't be accusing people of that unless we have some hard facts about it. So I'm not saying that, but I am disappointed that it's gotten to the point where maybe this was trying to be squashed. And hopefully now there's been enough of an uproar from the people, people that really care. I'm not talking about progressives on the left that use this for politics, but people that really care are demanding answers. And if the answers start to come, we should realize how much power we have by demanding answers. And that's one way that we can get to the bottom of this, or at least start.
Yeah. The people have the power. There's a few handful of elitists that think that they can wield it here and there, but the reality is all we have to do is come together. Yeah. We, the people, have the power. And I found this I've traveled all around the world and I've worked with so many people everywhere. And I've realized that most people, even in countries that we would deem as our enemies, I've spent time in Iran, I've spent time in Syria, I've spent time in Israel, I've spent time in China, I've spent time in Russia, I've spent time around the world with people who we say, these are good people that just want to raise their families in peace. They're just like you and I. That 99.9% of the world population are good, decent people who just want a better life, they don't want to be at war. They don't want to be throwing missiles at each other. You take away all the propaganda, you take away all of the people who are trying to force stuff down our throat and create this division. The reality is, I think we can all get along. We don't have to be abusing children. We don't have to be controlling things through sexual blackmail. We don't have to be lobbing missiles at each other. We can figure out how to get through this.
No, and I'll tell you, just to add to that, Paul, I've been speaking for about 30 years. I've spoken at almost 2,000 events worldwide in major countries. And people are really good people. We've never encountered bad people on the road. People that come to the events, people we sit down with, again, just want to raise their families, want to have, a decent lifestyle for themselves. Really good people. So I don't think a lot of people know that, because we see the media. All we see is, bad stuff going on. But people are really, I've been to every city in this country. Always a warm reception, always great people. I tend to love people because of that, And then how many millions more do we be in contact with online? So we do have good people in this world. They just have to be enlightened and educated and realize that when we come together, we have a voice, and we make the people on top that are not doing the right thing listen to us. That's what it's all about. So I appreciate everything that you're doing. Once again, when can we get the book?
Sound of Freedom. It's going to be on Amazon. Hopefully in the near future, it'll be in bookstores as well. Right. But yeah, Sound of Freedom looks just like this, and you can go right on Amazon. We're actually number one, even though it hasn't even come out yet. We're number one on true crimes on Amazon right now.
And
so
it should be. And is this the first of a series now?
Yes, this is the Child Liberation series, book 1. So I only include a handful of the 70 missions in this one. So there's a lot more missions. The other series of these will come out a little bit later. I'm almost done with a book on conscious capitalism, how you can make a lot of money while doing a lot of good. Because I think that, people are like, well, that's totally different. No, it leads into the same thing here. If you think that we live in a world of dog eat dog, if you think we live in a world of scarcity where the only way you can get ahead and make $1 billion is by other people to lose $1 billion, then you're in that same mindset of division and taking and the same thing that's contributing to what we're seeing with child trafficking and wars, et cetera, et cetera. And again, I think that most religions believe we're going to go through a time of turmoil and then a time of peace. We're going to be there. But this is going to be a handbook of how we interact with each other to create a true win-win-win. And my chapter 1 is your economics teacher lied to you, scarcity versus abundance. Right. And I go into economic theories and I believe that 10, 20 years from now, almost everybody in the world could have a lifestyle similar to mine in terms of not having to worry about, day-to-day
paying the rent.
All of that stuff. We really can. And we it's just a matter of changing our mindset about money, about finance, about success, about collaboration, et cetera. And so that one's coming out. And then I'm working on the book, Are You Listening? That talks about being able to tune into that still small voice of truth. Once those 2 are done, then yes, I'm going to write the rest of the Child Liberation series as well.
Well, Paul, I'm going to be the first to buy all of those books. I love the subject matter on all of them, especially number 2 there. I'll be the first to read that. I can tell you that.
I'll send you pre-book copies. I'll send you like chapter 1, I've got 12 chapters finished already. I'll send you a couple of them. I'll just in digital. I think you'll really, really like what's
Please do, because I'll spread the word to others too on that. That's what we need, really. And, you've been there, you've done that, and you continue to do it. So you're speaking from experience, knowledge, and authority. And that's the best way. But hey, it's been great, Paul. Hopefully this is the second of many more times that we get together. And like I said, I'm totally supportive of you. And I appreciate everything you're doing and everything you've gone through. And one last question. The 70 missions, do you actually get into detail about how you rescued these children?
Yeah.
That's so important for people to understand this. Paul actually rescued these children. If you haven't seen the movie Sound of Freedom, watch it now. And he goes into greater detail in the book. And boy, we just have to appreciate that. And you have to be aware of this. It's so important in our lives. So I can't wait to read it.
I'll give you a signed copy today.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right, my friend. Thank you. Okay. For my school community, the Franzese family, we try to get things to you. You ask some questions of Paul, and he's going to be nice enough to answer them. I think throughout our interview, Paul answered just about everything, but a few more that we'll get into a little bit more detail. So this is all for you, special, of course. So, Paul, first question for my Franzese family, Franzese community. My friends, if you want to hear the rest of this eye-opening interview, join my school community. Link is in the description. People, there you have it. I don't even know what to say. This topic, this is so disgusting and despicable to me. I'll tell you the truth, man. I'm a Christian, but if I was on the street again, or I don't even know if I have to be on the street again. I love the Lord. I mean it. But man, I get one of these people in front of me that abused a young girl. I mean, you heard they had a menu of sexual favors that these young girls would perform, and the dollar sign next to it, how much it would cost. What kind of an animal do you have to be to promote this, number one? And what kind of a despicable human being do you have to be to engage in it? This is demonic work. Demonic. So I really appreciate Paul coming on. I really appreciate everything that he has done and that he continues to do. And people, we need to rally. This is a bipartisan issue. We need to rally behind this issue and do something about it. And the way we do it is continue to make our voices known, because these people, they're cowards. People that engage in this, they're cowards. They're running for cover. They don't want anybody to know anything. Trust me. They blackmail one another. They'll do whatever they have to do because they're cowards to stay out of the public eye. And believe me, you know what? If they did become into the public eye, it would be extremely damaging, and it should be. I don't care who it is. I don't give a darn what their title is, how much money they got. I don't care if it's Bill Gates or the richest person in the damn world, most powerful person in the world. They should be held accountable. So we need to let them know, don't be engaged in this anymore because we're watching. So Paul, thank you so much for coming aboard. I really mean that. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank all of you out there that are in any way trying to help these young girls and young boys, young girls and boys. We really appreciate the work that you do. And I think everybody needs to get behind you and support you on this. So that's it for today, my friends. How do I always leave you? Be safe, especially our young kids. We got to take care of our kids. They are the future. They're God's gift, our young children. We got to bring them up in the right way. We got to give them guidance. We got to teach them right. And any relatives that are abusing these young kids, like Paul said, that causes them to go into these horrible human trafficking situations, shame on you. Shame on you. You better repent. I'm telling you right now, because there's a special place in hell for somebody like you to abuse children like this. Be safe. Be healthy. Again, I can rant about that all day. And yes, God bless each and every one of you. God bless these children. Let them get through all of this. God bless Paul. God bless everybody that's involved in trying to get a handle and stop this human trafficking of young children. And God bless America. Yes, I'll see you next time. Take care.